So today we're going to be reviewing the Yamaha XV1100, or the Yamaha Virago as it's commonly known. And while this bike may look like it came straight out of the 70s, this model is actually a 98. Let me show you, before we even get on the bike and get started, let me show you my favorite feature. Check this out. There is a tiny little trunk in the back so you can keep your insurance in. I mean, how absolutely Japanesely clever is that? So, a few specs on the Virago as we get going here. It's going to be a big air-cooled V-twin. It's going to make, I think, supposedly about 60 horsepower, about 60 pound-feet of torque, give or take. It's not exactly what you would call a rocket, but it is extremely comfortable. You got two disc brakes on the front, I don't know, 250 millimeters or 300 millimeters, something like that. And you got one drum brake in the back. You can actually probably hear the shaft drive spinning up in the back. I mean, it's got fresh oil in it. It's just how these old shaft drives, Yamaha shaft drives are. You can see right here it's got the old school Yamaha weird fuel system, fuel pump switch type deal that basically is designed that as you're running out of gas, it'll actually turn off the fuel pump and let the carbs run dry to let you know that you're running out of gas. It's kind of really a unique system. I have never found much of a reason for it. That's why I always leave it on res, just so it overrides it. This bike specifically has two BST40 carbs, which, if you're an avid dirt biker, you're probably familiar with them. They come on a lot of 4-stroke KTM models and whatnot. Not bad. This specific bike, when I picked it up out of this old gentleman's garage, it actually had sat for about 4 years, and those carbs were completely gunked through. The whole fuel system was completely gunked through. It was absolutely disgusting. So I replaced everything. And interestingly enough, the rear carb actually has a larger main jet than the front carb does. So a little bit more about this bike. You saw from the design, so basically a little history lesson here. In the early 80s, or let's say 78, basically Harley-Davidson owned the cruiser market. There wasn't really any Japanese competition at the time, and as a result, there was basically, you bought a Harley or you bought a standard bike or a sports bike from one of the big Japanese companies. Those are basically your choices. And basically in 1982, Yamaha released the Virago XV1100, and then shortly thereafter a 700 and 900cc version. And then basically it all culminated in 88, 89 when they released the 1100. And they realized that, you know, people who bought cruiser bikes didn't want LCD displays. They didn't want all kinds of cool tech. All they really wanted was a big throbbing air-cooled V-twin, which is what they got. And this bike, in comparison to other similar motorcycles of its day, is actually really pretty quick and pretty sprite. Makes supposedly about 60 horsepower to the rear wheel, which basically at the time was more than Sportster 1200 or pretty much anything else that you could buy that was kind of similar. And it's really not a bad bike. It's not really my style of bike, but as a motorcycle in general, it's really not too bad. I mean, I'm barely holding the throttle. We're going 45 at about 2,500 RPM. It's a 5-speed gearbox. But you never really feel like you need a 6-speed. The torque is pretty firm. The bike suspension's pretty good. It's a little on the soft side, really, because you got 38mm standard forks in the front, and you can actually see them. If I come to a stoplight and look down, you can actually see them vibrate as the bike is just sitting there idling. And you know, we'll slow down a bit to stay within the speed limit, but it's really not a bad bike. And the cool thing is even for a V-twin, like 10,000, 9,000, 8,000's a little optimistic. but I have revved this bike out to about $6,000, and it will do it. But it vibrates a lot. You know, if I was a woman, I'd be getting pretty cross-eyed right about now. Even though this bike has a Mustang seat on it, it's still quite the vibrator. Which at some degree you just can't help because you got a big V-twin in the front. As you can see, I'm still playing with the fueling a little bit. It's still idling a little bit high. There we go. That's a lot better. These BSD carbs, like I said, the front and rear are set up totally differently, so it took a little bit of playing to get them to work right. But the truth is, once I soaked all the gunk out, rebuilding the fuel system really wasn't a big deal on this bike. The only thing that was a real pain in the butt is the oil filter, because you got to disassemble half of the bike's chrome cage to get to the oil filter, so it's really kind of an intensive process. Let's see. Oh, in terms of the fueling system, so check this out. So you have the gas tank, which is right here, right? You got the gas tank. But in addition to the gas tank, you also have a smaller gas tank down here on my left-hand side, basically under a little pannier cover. And so that's like a second gas tank. So gas freely flows, no petcock, no nothing, from the big gas tank to the little gas tank, runs across the bike, and then goes to the fuel pump, which pumps it up to the carburetors, which is I think done almost entirely to enable this fuel system to work. This res and on system right here to work, which I think is really goddamn stupid, but whatever. Basically, I had to clean all of that out, put in all new lines for all the fuel, new fuel filter, rebuilt the carbs. Wasn't too terribly big deal. The other really cool thing about this bike is this tank is deceptively small. It's only about 3.5 gallons, despite being quite large. And the reason for that is the backbone of this bike isn't like a single tube like most frame bikes. It's actually about 2.5–3 inches wide, and it's hollow. And this bike actually has the air filter right here, right up next to my right leg. And that air filter actually feeds into that backbone. There's a negative space inside of this wide backbone. It's about this wide all the way down, and it acts as the intake chamber. And then each of the carbs has a tube that comes up to that intake chamber, and basically pulls air from there, which I thought was really kind of interesting. It also doubles as basically an oil trap up in there. Which is pretty cool too. Let's see, other technical interesting things about this bike. Like I said, it's a shaft drive. I don't have a problem with it. I had a shaft. My VMAX was a shafty, and I never had a moment's hesitation or issue with it. This bike's shaft is a little loud. It's a little louder than my VMAX, but I also have no reason to believe that there's any issue. I replaced the oil in it. Sounds great. I mean, the bike's only got 17,000 miles, and here in a second we're going to merge up onto the highway to really see how the bike performs. Mostly up to now I've talked about history. So, oh, and by the way, this bike is still alive today. It's just Yamaha picked up or created the Star brand, and the Star brand in turn released, it was called the Drag 1100 or something like that in 2000. So this bike was made between 88 and 2000, so we have a pretty late model example here. And you know, it's really a cool, comfortable cruising bike. It's not a whole lot of issues with it. Like I said, one of the other unique thing is, see, you can see right there, you can see the forks just shaking, and you can see it's got the two front discs. And that was the other major advantage. This bike was one of the few cruiser style bikes that had two front discs, and while it does have a drum in the back, the drum is actually really very effective. The foot brake is really very effective on this bike, especially once you bleed it. And so, you know, there you go. Not exactly what I would call blistering performance, but it's not bad. It's not not horrible. So we're gonna merge up on the highway here and basically see how she cruises. So there's about 65. What are we? We're up in 5th gear, and here's the one thing I really don't like about this bike. I really don't like that there's basically just a negative space in the gearbox above 5th gear. So like normally on a bike, once you get into 5th gear, it won't let you click up any further. On this bike, you can just keep moving the shift lever up, but nothing happens, which I'm not a real huge fan of. But it's a pretty small qualm compared to all the things this bike does really well. And so this is a construction zone, so we're gonna be good until we get out of it. But basically, if you set it at 60, which is kind of the thing that you would do if you were in the 70s, you'd set it at 55 or 60 and just cruise along. I mean, the bike feels extraordinarily stable. The suspension combined with the seat pass through almost very little vibration at this speed. The rubber engine mounts really do their job once you get going. It's really more pertinent when you're standing still, but once you're actually moving down the road, it's actually really a pretty comfortable bike, and you can just sit and cruise at 65 miles an hour, and what is that, 3,500 RPM? There you are in top gear, just rolling along like thunder or whatever. And there's a cop. Somebody got pulled over, so we'll move over and let the police officer do his duty without having to be worried about having the humiliating result of being run down by a Yamaha Virago. The only other real negative aspect of this bike, and this is a testament to the 21st century here, guys, the Virago forums are pretty terrible. They pretty much don't exist. You're stuck using VMAX forums, other Yamaha forums, and so on, which is really kind of annoying. There is a Virago forum, it's just really not actually any good. The only thing of usefulness I managed to find was I did manage to find a full guide, basically to read, you know, like a manual to the bike, and that was helpful in certain ways. But yeah, so this bike, once I got all the fueling stuff rebuilt on it, it's been excellent. I've put on, I've actually refilled the tank twice, so I've put maybe 150 plus 17 on it. It's not really my style, so I don't really ride it around very much, but you know, as a bike, it's pretty good. The brakes are real solid, real spot on. Even the rear, which is a drum. The engine, like I said, whatever, it makes about 60 horse to 60 pound-feet of torque, and that's kind of what it feels like. It doesn't really give you a whole lot. I mean, if you rev it up in that's top gear. We're just accelerating in top gear, and then we're braking from top gear, and you know, it's a motorcycle. It does motorcycle-y stuff. Basically accelerates like it should and brakes like it should, and all the lights are off on the dash, and there we go. We put it in neutral, light comes on, and here we are riding around beautiful North Austin. And I think the thing that for me really makes the bike is the styling. I just recently saw a Harley, what is it called, an FLT or FLTX or whatever, on Craigslist that looked almost identical to this bike minus the windscreen, selling for about $10,000. That's another cop. I don't know which way he's going, but I can almost guarantee he's going my way, or maybe not. We'll just, I mean, it's a yellow light, so we'll stop, pull over as much as we can, make sure Mr. Popo's got a way to get through if he needs to, and of course he's coming this way. So we're gonna mosey out of his way and let him get through. There he goes, Austin's finest, doing his job. And I'm really hoping that I didn't go too far as to not get run over by this cross traffic. Hopefully wherever he's going, everything's okay. But everything's peachy here on the Virago. I'm sitting in my comfortable Mustang seat. I got a big V-twin throbbing between my legs. I can just feel my mustache growing right now. It's basically just got my Fu Manchus just coming right in. Just sitting on this bike is accelerating it. You know, I can, I feel like that guy in the Southern Comfort commercial, you know, the one getting his hair washed or whatever. That's how I feel when I ride this bike. Like, I should be wearing some gold chains, maybe a button-up shirt open to the navel. You know what I'm saying. Got hair going everywhere. Got my big mustache, and ride my Virago, or XV1100 as the guys on the forum refer to it as. So yeah, I hope we're almost back to the house. I hope you guys kind of enjoyed my first little bike review video. You know, you can really lean this bike over into the corners. It's you know, it's not a bad bike. You can really romp on it if you want. And there we go. Feel that? Yeah, that's that shaft drive I'm talking about, man. You just slam down a few gears and let the clutch in real quick. Back end gives you a little chirp, lets you know it's still there. You know, it's a great bike, and I got no qualms about it. It's currently for sale, $3,200 OBO here in Austin, Texas, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this review. I'm basically pulling into my apartment complex here, so I'm gonna shut her down. But thank you for watching, and there's going to be quite a few more motorcycles being tested here in the next few days, and we're going to be loading them up on the internet. And here's the AT&T guy. I don't have AT&T, so he's not here for me. But anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you like it. Check out the website at www.MaksWerks.com. Read my blog, all kinds of useful information in there. And ride safe, guys.